A successful road trip for the Atlanta Braves ends on a sour note with a loss to the Colorado Rockies, despite a fantastic start, the best start of the season for Chris Sale. We'll talk about that and also what to do with Ozzie Albies and his continuing struggles. All that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. It takes you 30 seconds, and it helps me out a ton whenever you do those things. Thank you so much for your support here at Locked On Braves. If you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about the last two games in Colorado, a series win, but a disappointing ending to the series. Felt like you had a chance to sweep that, get back to 500, but the Braves weren't able to do so. And then we're going to spend the second segment talking about Ozzie Albies and his continuing struggles with 2 outs and runners in scoring position this year, and just the bad at-bats overall. We'll get into all that and what his future is with this team on today's episode, which is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code at LockedOnMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Well, the Atlanta Braves do go 4-2 on the road trip. They win both series out west, which is great, fantastic. 4 straight series wins for this team. Now, they seem to be on a roll, and they're taking care of business, beating teams that they should be beating, and even getting a sweep in there like they had against the Twins at home. But this felt like one where they should have had a sweep on Wednesday against the Colorado Rockies, who only had 4 wins total on the year coming in. They now have 5 after beating the Braves 2-1 in Wednesday's afternoon game. I wanted to mention these numbers really quickly that David O'Brien of The Athletic put out there. He said, after this 2-1 loss at Colorado, the Braves are 3-7 in day games, fewest wins in Major League Baseball, and they're 11-9 in night games, tied for the second most wins in night games. They have a 259 average in night games and a 217 average in day games. Olsen and Riley in particular, David O'Brien points out, are struggling in day games. So I know the Braves have had this issue in the past with day games, and it just looked like that to me today. They just weren't. I don't know if the sun is a factor or whatever the case may be. Neither team looked like they were picking up the ball particularly well today, but especially Braves hitters. It wasn't the same at bats and approach that we've seen for the past several weeks now with this offense. The at bats looked completely off and bad. And credit to, Chase Dollander, who I think is a really good young arm and going to be good. Credit to Chris Sale, who I thought was excellent in this game. But just the at bats from the Braves were not what we've come accustomed to seeing. And even before that, you take Alex Verdugo out of this lineup on Wednesday, which I understand it, slow to start in spring training. You don't want to push him too much, but you put in Eddie Rosario. And look, it probably wouldn't have been any better with Jared Kelenic, but some pretty awful at bats from Eddie Rosario in this game, which again, he's been playing minor league baseball, has been playing a lot of competitive baseball here lately. And even at his best of times, Eddie Rosario could give you some pretty bad at bats, but it just felt like it changed the dynamic of the game in the lineup to me. When first you're shaking up the lineup, you're moving Michael Harris back up to the leadoff spot where he's been so good down in the order. So you're shaking things up there. You're taking Verdugo out, who's been giving you consistently professional at bats. It sent a message to me as a fan. I'm sure it wasn't like this for the players in the clubhouse. They wanted to go out there and win this game and get the sweep. But it sent a message to me as a fan that they already won the series. We've had a great road trip. We're fine with what we've had. It had that type of vibe and feeling. And look, they're human beings as well. There is a human aspect to this, and you just have to wonder if mentally they were kind of checked out of the game on Wednesday. It certainly seemed that way, at least by the at bats that they were having. It's been a long road trip. They played a lot of games on the road already this season. I'm sure they're thinking, yeah, we've already had a great road trip. To win today would be great, but we got the off day tomorrow. We get to go back home. Look, as a human being, I would be thinking that too. And again, not making excuses for them, but possibly one of the reasons why they just looked so flat and sluggish on Wednesday afternoon and just weren't able to get it done. And that's unfortunate because I thought it was a big momentum type of game for them to be able to end the month getting to 500. I thought that would be huge. Now, to get back to even where they are was still a huge accomplishment, but you had a chance to really kind of go above and beyond that and get to 500 by the end of the month after starting 0-7, and they just weren't able to get it done. Now I'm going to talk about AJ Smith-Shawver and Chris Sale, the past two starters, as I'm kind of covering both the final two games in Colorado. AJ Smith-Shawver on Tuesday, 5 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 walk, 2 earned, 4 strikeouts on 59 pitches. One of the best performances I think we've seen in his young career, certainly the best one we've seen in quite a while. However, you look at the data on this one for AJ Smith-Shawver, it doesn't really buy into the success that he had, especially when you consider the opponent and the Rockies and who they are. 8 hard hit balls against AJ Smith-Shawver. All but 2 of them were in the air. Not great for somebody who gives up a lot of home runs, which, look, there's been a lot of successful fly ball pitchers. He can certainly be that, but don't love him giving up hard contact in the air like that. 25% whiff rate, 32% called strike plus whiff percentage. That's pretty solid. Nothing spectacular. 6 whiffs on 14 swings on that splitter, which he was getting a lot of whiffs at. But you go back and look at the sprays chart for that splitter, a lot of them were left middle. And I don't think that's really where you want to be throwing that pitch. The induced vertical break on his four seam, which gives that, that perception of rise when you're throwing it, it was down 3 inches, which could have had something to do with the thin air in Colorado. That could have obviously affected the movement on his splitter as well, which didn't seem to be getting that drop below the zone. It was seemed like a more horizontal movement, if anything. Again, I don't want to take anything away from the start from AJ Smith-Shawver, Chris Sale, or Bryce Elder in this series, but you got to consider the opponent that they were facing too. And with AJ Smith-Shawver, looking at the data, doesn't really back up necessarily what we saw. I was mostly impressed with the ability to throw strikes, to be efficient. And if he can continue to do that, even with this stuff, if it's in the zone, again, as we saw on Tuesday, it's still hard to hit and hard to square up. So that was the biggest thing that I took away from AJ Smith-Shawver, is just the efficiency and the ability to throw strikes. Now, unfortunately, he did leave the game early. Like he was going to go 7-8 innings in this one, but he took a comebacker off the elbow. X-rays came back negative. Brian Snitker said that he should be ready to go for his next start on Monday. So that is good news. Hopefully we see AJ Smith-Shawver get some run in the rotation. I do like the arm. I'm excited about it. I think he obviously has the most upside of any of those candidates for that 4th, 5th spot, but I would love to see him get some run and get on a roll at the big league level. Now, as for Chris Sale, 7 innings, 5 hits, no walks, 2 earned, 10 strikeouts, easily his best performance of the year, 100 pitches. Still, the stuff looked fantastic to me. Again, for, like I said, with AJ Smith-Shawver, the stuff didn't necessarily impress me in that start, but the results were there. For Chris Sale, the results were there, and the stuff looked incredible. The command looked much better on his slider and on his changeup in this, or not his changeup, his fastball. Still feel like he's trying to find it with that changeup a little bit. Only 4 hard hit balls allowed. So I mentioned AJ Smith-Shawver. He gave up 8 hard hit balls in 5 1/3 innings. Chris Sale only allowed 4 in 7 innings. 23 whiffs is an insane number of swings and misses. It's a 46% whiff rate. He got 18 of them on that slider, a 43% CSW percentage. 30 is kind of that threshold mark for me for a called strike plus whip rate to say, a good outing or not. He was at 43. The velocity on the fastball and the slider really were down just a bit, but still, I thought the location was good on it. The fastball, he was still able to get it up to 97 in the last frame when he was airing it out. So it's still in there. That's not concerning me. And he had a runner at third with no outs, and he was able to bear down and get back-to-back strikeouts and a ground out to escape the jam. And that's back-to-back starts now where he's been in those situations, runner at third, less than 2 outs, and he's been able to come up with a big strikeout there. So I love seeing that from Chris Sale. I don't really have much of a take in the bullpen in this one. First 2 games were kind of, didn't have a lot of stress. And this one didn't really either, with you being behind. I mean, the relievers that came in were good. They didn't give up anything, but I don't really have many takeaways from the bullpen in this one. Offensively, the bottom 3 in the order, traditionally, if it's going to continue to be Michael Harris, Eli White, Nick Allen, were fantastic. Eli White had one of the 3 hits on the day. Nick Allen got robbed of a double down the line by Ryan McMahon over there at third base that also cost the Braves a run, and they lost by 1. So that was a big play in the game. But those 3 in particular have been doing a great job. They did a great job in this series at the bottom of the order, and they've needed it because Ozuna's kind of cooled off a little bit. Riley's been struggling here as of late. We'll talk about the struggles with Ozzie Albies. So the Braves have needed those guys at the bottom of the order, and they continue to come through. I talked about that Game 3 lineup. It just felt like we've had a great road trip. We've already won the series. It felt like that type of lineup. I know there weren't a lot of new people that came in. You really just swapped Alex Verdugo for Eddie Rosario and Sean Murphy for Drake Baldwin, but it just had that feeling to me of they were just flat. I think Lindsay said it best on the postcast, and they were just flat in this game. And you still have Ozzie Albies batting 5th. Please stop batting him 5th right now. It's driving me crazy. Stop putting him there. You're putting him in clutch situations, and he's just not coming through at the moment. And like I said earlier, I don't want to take anything away from Chase Dolander. I know he's been struggling here to begin his professional campaign, but he's a really good arm, and I thought he threw the ball really well today. He was locating the fastball on the edges. The breaking pitches looked really good and were located nicely. Unfortunately, he had a blister and had to leave maybe just a batter early. I think he was about at the end of his rope anyway. And also no home runs from this offense, which is wild when you consider they had 30 hits, over 31 hits in this series, and not a single home run. That to me screams that there's an approach change by this team, and it's been working until it didn't on Wednesday. But I mean, if they can keep that approach and keep racking up the hits, stop striking out as much, and those home runs come like we know they will, then this offense is going to continue to be very dangerous. They've already been very dangerous, but I think they could be even more dangerous. And quickly on the defense, Matt Olson, go ahead and give him the Gold Glove. The catch he made in foul territory, nobody else in baseball is making that catch. That is just insane. And then I mentioned Ryan McMahon over there at third base made a couple of incredible plays in the series for the Rockies, and one of them helped save the game on Wednesday for the Rockies. All right, next we're going to get into Ozzie Albies. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What's frustrating you the most with Ozzie? What do you think are the long-term plans with him? That's what we're going to talk about here on the podcast next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and building your wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Been married almost 10 years. Money can be a big stress factor in your marriage. Monarch Money can help you out with that. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get 50% off your first year. Thanks as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. On tomorrow's podcast, we are going to be talking about the first month of the season. Going to break down all the numbers for the Braves through the first month and look ahead to what's coming your way in the month of May, where it is a little bit tough of a schedule to begin, but then in the middle of that, there's a good chance for the Braves to really take off, get above 500, and get on a roll. So looking forward to talking about that on tomorrow's podcast. But once you're done here, go check out the guys over at Locked On MLB, solely getting you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball, as well as the MLB Game Night podcast, highlighting the best moments and best games from each and every day. Now, unfortunately, we got to have a bit of a tough conversation here about Ozzie Albies. There seems to be a lot of concern, a lot of warranted concern for Ozzie Albies. The majority of questions, comments that I've gotten so far this season have been about Ozzie Albies and his struggles and the future of Ozzie Albies. Many of you wanting to get rid of him, wanting to trade him, saying the Braves shouldn't pick up his option, all of that. Let me be very clear up front. It would be idiotic for the Braves not to pick up his option for next year. No matter what happens the rest of this way, it would be idiotic if they did not pick up his option for next year. It's a $7 million option with a $4 million buyout for a guy who is still in his 20s and has been a really good player in the past. Maybe he's declining. Maybe this is the beginning of a decline for Ozzie Albies. I think it's a fair conversation and a fair debate that we're going to get into. Even if you feel that way, it would make no sense to decline his team option for next year. So Ozzie Albies is your second baseman for this season and most likely next year as well. I don't think the Braves are going to trade him, and I'll talk about that more further on. But just to go through his contract and what he has right now, there's 2 more years of control left for the Atlanta Braves. They are both team options at $7 million. There is the $4 million buyout for 2026. There is no buyout in that final season. But it's only 2 more years left here for Ozzie Albies. And again, we'll get into the future more in a minute, but the Braves might have a tough decision to make. 2025, 29 games so far, 118 at bats. I think this was going into Wednesday's game where he did pick up one of the Braves' 3 hits, got a single in the 9th inning, but also came up in a big spot and didn't get a hit earlier in the game. But 29 games, 118 at bats, 4 doubles, 4 homers, 13 runs batted in, 17 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, like seeing that, 10 walks to 16 strikeouts, a 237 average, 297 on base, 373 slug, just a 670 OPS. 25.5% hard hit rate would be a career low for him. The 12.5% strikeout rate would be a career high. So he's not striking out nearly as enough, and he's not striking out nearly as much, I should say. And a 7.8% walk rate would be his highest since 2017. So you look at the strikeout rate, look at the walk rate, which are both, typically pretty low for Ozzie Albies, but you're actually seeing a decent walk rate for him, and you're seeing a career low strikeout rate. So he's not striking out. He's taking some more walks, but it's a career low hard hit rate. It's also 4.9% barrel rate would be his lowest since 2018. His 86 WRC plus would be a career low. Even in his bad injury filled season, he's been in the 90s for WRC plus. His 245 batting average on balls in play is a career low. So perhaps there is some bad luck in there, but you look at his 227 expected batting average, and that's actually lower than his actual batting average, which would tell you that he's actually been a little bit lucky. So it's very confusing and odd just looking at the baseline numbers for Ozzie Albies. Now, you look at some of the batted ball metrics for him, 33.3% ground ball rate. That would be the second lowest ground ball rate of his career. 48% fly ball rate would be the second highest. So you're seeing more balls in the air. 18.6% line drive rate is about normal. So you're seeing fewer ground balls, you're seeing more fly balls, but not more line drives. And this is the big one that many people are pointing out and seeing with Ozzie Albies, a 16.3% infield fly ball rate. So fly balls on the infield, so pop-ups, essentially. 16.3%. That would be tied for his highest career mark, which he set last year, which was way above his normal mark in his career. So now you're looking at a trend of 2 years, but obviously not 2 full years, as he was injured a lot last year. And we're still dealing with a small sample size this season, but you're seeing a lot more pop-ups on the infield for Ozzie Albies. His pull rate, his up the middle rate, and his oppo rate are all about normal. So nothing changing there. You look at his clutch rate based on FanGraphs and how they determine a clutch situation, negative 0.78, which would be a career low. So he's just not coming through in big situations. He really seems to be struggling with breaking pitches. He's hitting 161 against breaking balls. It was 189 last year. And those have been some pitches, breaking balls, slider, things like that, curveballs. Those have been pitches that he's fluctuated with throughout his career. Sometimes it's in the 250-ish area, but sometimes it is under 200. But past 2 years now, breaking pitches have been something that he's really struggled with. He's swinging at the first pitch. When he swings at the first pitch, and this is interesting, he swings at the first pitch, he's hitting 333 this year. When he takes the first pitch, he's hitting 178. And I want to talk more about that in a second. He's hitting 257 with runners in scoring position. That's not a bad rate. 257 with runners in scoring position with 8 RBIs so far this year. I got to imagine most of those hits probably came in the beginning of the year, which I actually thought he was having good at-bats at the beginning of the season. It's really just been the past week or so for me that the at-bats and the contact have gotten worse. It's really just been with 2 outs that Ozzie Albies has struggled a lot. And that's probably why it's standing out to us, because he seems to always be coming up with runners on base, with 2 outs in that crucial spot in a ball game, and he's not coming through. He's had 16 at-bats this year with the runners in scoring position and 2 outs, and he's got 2 hits, and both of them were singles. So he's just not coming through in those clutch moments. For his career, he's hitting .261 in those situations, over 379 at-bats. So are we dealing with a small sample size here with Ozzie Albies, or is this a new trend for him? Because through his career, he's been pretty good. Not great, .261, but he's been solid in those situations. But so far this season, it has been dreadful, and many of them have been easy pop-outs. You look at Baseball Reference's high leverage stat, and they have him hitting 171 in 35 at-bats in what Baseball Reference categorizes as a high leverage situation. So he's just not coming through in the clutch right now for the Atlanta Braves, and that's what we as fans are seeing. We're seeing him come up in those big moments, batting 5th, batting behind all those guys that keep getting on base, and he's not coming through. Which, why are you still batting him there? Now, I look at all this data and I look at all these stats that I just pointed out to you. 2 things stand out to me, and I think these are fixable things for Ozzie Albies. One, he's being less aggressive, and you're seeing that from the whole team. I talked about this early on. Even when the offense was struggling, you were seeing an approach change from this team that I'm sure Tim Hires has tried to implement, being more patient, being more selective with the pitches. You heard it on the broadcast, which almost brought me to tears with excitement to hear them talk about they're playing a game in the clubhouse of which side doesn't chase as much, right-handed hitters versus left-handed hitters. I love hearing that there is a focus on them at being more selective, swinging at the right pitches, and that is great. That is fantastic. Hasn't worked out for Ozzie Albies, though. He's being less aggressive, but maybe this approach just isn't for him. We know how aggressive he's been throughout his career, and at times it does make you want to pull your hair out. It is a very frustrating at-bat to watch when he's not going well. But maybe either this approach just isn't for him, or he's struggling more than others to adjust to this approach. And we saw it early on with a lot of these Braves hitters. They were trying to change their approach and be more selective and stop chasing and be more contact oriented. And it was a struggle for a lot of these guys, but many of them are starting to get on board and come around, and maybe Ozzie just hasn't gotten there yet. And the other thing is the obvious one that I kind of pointed out earlier, and that many of you have pointed out too. He's just getting under the ball too much, which seems like maybe it's just a mechanical issue. I know, Lindsay has pointed out the fact that the bat speed has cratered and gone way down, to quote him. But maybe that's just part of maybe he has a loop in his swing that's slowing that bat speed down. That's also causing him to get under the baseball. And I feel like that's mechanical and something that he should be able to fix. So again, I think these are fixable things for Ozzie Albies that he can do to get on the right track. It's just hard for me to believe that somebody that's been as successful as him is still just 28 years old, that all of a sudden has just fallen off a cliff. Now, you could say combine 2024 and 2025, and it's not necessarily a small sample size, because what you're seeing this year is basically what we were seeing last year in the same type of hitter. And you look at his bat speed this year, it's in the fourth percentile, or 8th percentile rather. You look at it last year, it was 14th percentile. But I mean, he's never been somebody that's been huge on bat speed. So I don't know how much stock I put in to that necessarily, but there certainly does seem to be a loop in his swing. And if you can get that corrected, you can get him hitting line drives more, or at least hitting better launch angle and fly balls, and stop hitting all these pop outs. I think you can get Ozzie back on track. And here's the other thing, that if you've been an everydayer, you know my frustrations with Ozzie Albies, and you know what I'm about to say. He's a frustrating player to watch. I love him to death. I don't want to get rid of him. Let me go ahead and spoil the ending here. I don't want to get rid of him. But he is a frustrating player to watch at times, because the at-bats can be so aggressive and he can be so streaky. When he's hot, he can carry you. But when he is cold, it is absolutely dreadful watching him at the plate. And maybe he's starting the year on one of those. And like I said, the first 2 weeks of the season, I liked the at-bats from Ozzie Albies. I thought we were seeing some good swings. He just wasn't getting the results. But now over the last 2 weeks or so, he's coming up in those big spots and he's just not coming through. And he's got to figure that out, or you can't keep putting him there. You got to bat him down in the order and put Eli White, put Michael Harris up there, put Sean Murphy, put Drake Baldwin in there. Anybody but Ozzie Albies right now in the fifth spot until he gets going. But for now, you just got to ride it out. I think he is your second baseman. However, I think there is a situation to take Ozzie Albies out. And we'll talk about that more here next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats. I was trying to pick up my pack here, but I dropped them, so sorry about that. But I always keep some of the no-shell variety right behind me because it's a great snack to have on hand whenever I'm prepping for a podcast, watching a baseball game, if my kids don't take them from me like my oldest son did the other day. But I love the no-shell variety because, again, I'm not a messy person. I don't like having to mess around. But if you like the traditional crack and crunch of the shell varieties, they have those there for you too. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein a punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, I want to wrap up our conversation here on Ozzie Albies, and I want to go through and read some of your comments. Probably won't have time on air today, but I do want to go back and read some of these. But if I don't get to them, please put your comments in the comment section down below because I want to continue this conversation. And let me know, what is your biggest frustration with Ozzie Albies? What do you think the Braves should do with them long term? I kind of teased before the break there. I think there is one situation we could see going forward where Ozzie Albies actually does lose some playing time. Not permanently, but when Ronald comes back, if Eli White is still swinging a hot bat and Alex Verdugo is still giving you those professional at-bats, Eli White can play second base. And I think you have to consider it. Again, not on an everyday basis, but a way to get Eli White's bat in the lineup. And, you can move Eli White around against the lefty. Obviously, you can start him over Verdugo in left or, to get him at second base too. Look, if Eli White keeps hitting like this, he might just be the left fielder anyway whenever Ronald comes back. But I think there is a scenario and a path there to, one, get Eli White some more playing time and get Ozzie Albies some days off if he continues to struggle like this. Now, looking long term, talked about this earlier. It would be absolutely dumb if the Braves did not pick up his option for next year. I do not think the Braves would or should trade Ozzie Albies. And here's why. And this goes beyond the field of play. Many of you have complained about the fact that in free agency, they've let a lot of their leaders leave. They've let Freddie Freeman get away. I know there's a whole deal there, but bottom line, they let Freddie Freeman get away. They let Dansby Swanson go. They let Travis d'Arnaud go. They let Charlie Morton go. And those are guys I'm not saying that they should have brought back at their price points. But a lot of leadership has left this team over the last several years. Ozzie Albies is a big presence in the clubhouse. I hear it from everybody that's there covering the team. You see it. We see it as fans. Ozzie Albies is a big presence in that clubhouse. And for that reason, he is going to get a longer leash than most people. Right or wrong, you don't have to love that part of it. You can disagree with it. But he's going to get a longer leash than most people because of what he means to that team in the clubhouse. Matt Carter says, why is he so valuable? Because he smiles and is likable. Not sure he's a leader. He's just a funny goofball. Look, Matt, again, you can have that opinion if you want, but you ask those guys in the clubhouse what he means to that team. And from everything that I hear and everything that I'm told from people that are there every day is that Ozzie is that guy. We talk a lot about Ron Washington and him being gone and he being that guy that kept everybody loose. That's what Ozzie does. So again, you can have that opinion, and I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong, but I'm telling you he's going to get a longer leash than most people because of that, because of what his presence means to this team. And I want to be clear, I think Ozzie Albies will come around. I think he will be okay. I'm not completely worried about him, but you also can't have him continue to struggle like he is right now and bat where he is. I think that's probably my biggest issue at this moment, is that you have to be more reactive with him because of the highs and lows that he has. You've got to be more reactive with him. And right now you've got him in a spot in the lineup where you're constantly coming up in clutch situations, and he's just not coming through for you right now. And you have some bats like Sean Murphy, like Eli White, who are coming through that probably deserve that spot in the order. And that's probably my biggest thing. But Ozzie Albies is going to be your second baseman. I just believe that. I don't think there's going to be a dramatic change. I don't think he's getting traded. The option will be picked up this offseason, and I think it'll probably be picked up for 2027 as well. So again, I know this isn't the answer that many of you want to hear, but we're just going to have to ride it out and hope that Ozzie Albies at 28 years old can still figure out how to be an all-star level type of player. And every year that he's healthy, he has eventually proven that. And every year that he's been healthy, there have been some big highs and lows with Ozzie Albies. And sometimes you do just have to ride it out with him. It's been frustrating because last year was a struggle too, and you had all the injuries. And now you're starting off slow in this season and showing some of those same signs. I'm not ignoring the signs that are there that this could possibly be a regression of Ozzie Albies. I'm just saying I'm not willing to call it that just yet for a 28-year-old who has had some really good seasons, and that I think probably just needs to make some slight adjustments with his launch angle to get things going. So again, long-winded. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hopefully you were able to hear mine in that. Hopefully I came out with a clear ending in all of that. Ozzie Albies is my second baseman. And I guess that's probably the best and easiest way that I can say it, but it's not to say that I don't see the signs and the struggles there with him. And just outside of what I think, just what I feel, he's not going anywhere. So those are my thoughts and feelings on it. Let me know yours in the comment section below. Thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.